Welcome to the all-new Adoma and Company radio program. Each and every Sundays on 1430 AM WGFS. For advertising opportunities, please email sales@adomaandcompany.com. Your executive producer is Terry Melvin, chief engineer Neville Winter, and your host Diana Adoma. And now it's time for the Adoma and Company radio program with your host Diane Adoma.
Hello, everybody out there. This is Diane Adoma, Adoma and Company radio program. I'm sitting here now sipping my organic coffee, getting ready to talk to you. You speak and we listen. We have a jam-packed schedule for you today. We're going to be interviewing the commissioner for Post 2 seat in Rockdale County, Dr. Doreen Williams, the Democratic challenger, and then we have Janice, the Republican incumbent. They're going to talk to us a little bit about their initiatives and their platform. And we also have a special guest, Pastor Billie Cox with Macedonian Baptist Church. She's going to talk about women and female in the ministry and the role they're playing in getting people to the polls. Exciting information from Emory University students on the importance of the students voting. And last but not least, we have Robbin Shipp, who is the candidate for Labor Commissioner. I want to thank you again for listening. You're listening to Adoma and Company radio program. If you're interested in following me, you can follow me at Adoma Radio on Twitter and Facebook, Adoma and Company radio program. And if you're interested in advertising, we have some great packages through the end of December. You can advertise and send me an email at sales@adomaandcompany.com. You speak, we listen. Now remember, the secret to winning is never giving up. Well, now today we want to talk a little bit about the minimum wage because it seems to be a hot issue with many individuals here in Georgia. I was just reading an article on CNN at money.cnn.com about the minimum wage, and it speaks about 4 states who actually have the minimum wage on their ballots this election cycle. We have Alaska, Arkansas, Nebraska, and South Dakota. Now, these 4 states generally are Republican-leaning states, and the minimum wage generally, when it's on the ballot, it usually passes if history continues. The minimum wage law is applicable to any business with 6 or more employees. So if you have 6 or more employees, the minimum wage would be applicable to your business. Now, the law here in Georgia says they can't pay you under $5.15 an hour, which is the Georgia minimum wage. The federal or the national minimum wage is $7.25. So Georgia is well below the federal or the national minimum wage of $7.25. Now, there are some occupations that are exempt under the state or federal law, under the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. And that might be if you hire a babysitter to come watch the kids for you while you go out on a night out on the town, or farm workers, migrant workers, or if you were delivering newspaper, or if you were a seasonal worker, they could possibly pay you as little as $2.13 if you get tips. But if the tips earned are more than $5.15, then they pay you $2.13. If your tips are less, they have to pay you the difference to make up that minimum wage rate. Now, there are some provisions also with the minimum wage law that is applicable to minors and students and individuals with disabilities and some nonprofits. For more information on that, you can contact your Department of Labor at www.dol.gov. Now, here in Georgia, there is a big argument on the minimum wage. And the argument is, can you live off $5.15 an hour, or even more, can you live off $7.25 an hour? So the President Obama, wants to raise the minimum wage to $9. Currently, at the federal rate, the minimum wage of $7.25, that equates to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $15,080 a year, give or take a few, and that's before taxes. When you look at the budget for the average household with 2 people, and that's probably no children, You can see how difficult that could be, just to be able to buy food, pay your rent, make a car note, your insurance, and other things such as your utility companies. Now, there's a committee now in Los Angeles where the lawmakers are seriously considering, or they are currently analyzing the effects of raising the minimum wage. But you can see research clearly shows that small businesses are highly divided on this issue. So right now, California is still debating whether or not their minimum wage will be raised. Now, if you look at China taking it abroad, in China, the higher minimum wage has been a long, contentious debate, and it continues to be a debate. And the employers react to a higher minimum wage by hiring fewer people. And some economists say that this leads to lower employment. Georgia is very much divided on the minimum wage rate, and many feel like the minimum wage rate needs to be higher so that everyone who works an 8-hour-a-day job, if you're working 8 hours, you should be able to pay your bills and have the basic necessities. But unfortunately, at $5.15 an hour, many find it extremely difficult, and oftentimes some of these individuals are working multiple jobs. So it's very, very difficult to survive off the minimum wage here in Georgia. Now, currently, this is an election season, and of course, we know that one of the topics on the agenda for all the candidates that are running for this position tend to feel like minimum wage is highly debatable. The Democrats want to raise the minimum wage, and of course, the Republicans are against raising the minimum wage. So you can see how important it is for individuals to be able to go to the polls and to cast your vote for your candidate of choice if you think the minimum wage rate should be higher.
You're listening to Adoma and Company on the CV Media Network, 1430 AM WGFS.
My whole career has been dedicated to trying to make a difference, to living out my faith by trying to help others. Over and over again, I see what happens when people see a problem, see a challenge, or see an opportunity, and they say, we can do something about this. We need to recognize that America is better than our Congress right now, and we need to take some of that spirit that I see here in Georgia and infuse that into problem solving in Washington. I'm Michelle Nunn, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to the Adoma and Company radio program on the CV Media Network.
Welcome back, listeners. You're listening to the Adoma and Company radio program. I want to thank you again for listening today to 1430 AM. Again, you can follow me on Facebook at Adoma and Company radio program, or you can follow me on Twitter at Adoma Radio. Today we have a very, very, very special guest with us. We have Pastor Billie Cox, who's going to talk to us a little bit about a very interesting subject. You know, Reverend Cox, it's been 50 years since John F. Kennedy actually signed a law to abolish wage discrimination. And it seems like 50 years fast forward, it just seems like we're still fighting the same battles again. So it appears sometimes like there may be a war on women. And many here in Georgia are saying that women will actually carry this election. And what I wanted you to share with the listeners today is, what is the role of the female minister in getting the women out to the polls so that women can actually have a voice?
Well, thank you for that question, and thank you for this opportunity. As you well know, I serve as a senior pastor of a historic 141-year-old Macedonia Baptist Church in Conyers. And as such, I'm the first female to pastor a traditional, historic African-American Baptist church in Rockdale County. And I consider myself a trailblazer, a pioneer, and a front runner to other women who will assume this role and responsibility in years to come. And I take this as you know, an honor and a privilege to be able to encourage and motivate women spiritually, physically, financially, however it is that I have the opportunity. And one thing for us as women, and it is so critical that we began to go out and to just bombard the polls, because we haven't always had this opportunity to vote. I mean, women fought for this and struggled. Mary Dreyer, Alice Paul, Lucy Burns, Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, those were forerunners for us who went through the struggle so that we would have this opportunity. And as in my role, I want to specifically encourage women, because we're often the ones who are juggling multiple priorities, who have to find babysitters or, leave work early or go in early so that we can make up the time. And so we're the ones who struggle the most to get to the polls. And so I want to encourage women to make our voices heard. It is critical that we make our way to the polls, however we have to get there, that we get to the polls, because on November 4th, I believe that preparation and opportunity are always on a collision course. And on November 4th, preparation and opportunity will once again come to the point of collision, where there will be players who may exit stage left as others enter on stage right. But that all depends on our ability to go to the polls and make our votes heard.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Well, what advice can you give to being a woman of God and a praying woman, and as you said so eloquently, a trailblazer and a pioneer? And oftentimes women are just stressed and overloaded with many, many burdens. And so what spiritual encouragement can you give to the women out there who may be just weighed down with several challenges with getting to the polls? What can you say to them when they just feel like they just can't get there?
Well, in 1872, there was a national women's party that picketed on the White House, and they held up two banners, and one said, "Mr. President, what will you do for women's suffrage?" And the other one said, "How long must women wait for liberty?" And I want to say that on August 26, 1920, that 3/4 of the state legislatures ratified the 19th Amendment, and American women won full voting rights. And that is a pivotal time for us. It is critical that we continue, because the Bible says that one can put 1,000 to flight and two can put 10,000 to flight. And so as women, we are so powerful and so influential. If you think about it, in the Garden of Eden, one woman showed a piece of forbidden fruit to a man, and he bit of that fruit and got evicted from the only home that he ever knew. So how much more powerful, how much more influential are we when we come together at polling places all over this state to make our voices heard? How much more powerful are we when we come together on one accord? There was a cigarette company that said, "We've come a long way, baby." And we have indeed come a long way, but we still got a ways to go. That same company in 1990 said, they coined another phrase, and it was a simple phrase that said, "Find your voice." And I want to encourage my sisters that no matter what you have to sacrifice on November 4th, or if you have opportunity, and I'm thankful that in some counties in Georgia we have Sunday voting. So if you have opportunity, and Sunday is the only time that you can go vote, go worship and then go vote. Go worship and then go vote, because we need to make sure that our voices are heard.
So my listeners out there, you just heard it from a pioneer, from a trailblazer, a front runner, and a woman of God, a praying woman who's just telling you to keep the faith and get to the polls. Well, Pastor Cox, we certainly hope that you will accept an invitation to come on the show again, and 5 minutes is just not enough for a woman like you, so we definitely would like to invite you to come back.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I look forward to it, and I will make myself available, because I believe that my voice is on assignment, and there is a woman somewhere or women somewhere who need to hear what I have to say. I believe that God has placed a word in me that will help save the city of some woman's life.
And would you share with our listeners where your church is located in case some are interested in attending?
Macedonia Baptist Church is located at 1052 Barton, Barton Street in Conyers, Georgia. at 1052 Barton Street in Conyers, Georgia. Our service times are 11 a.m. on Sunday and 12:30 p.m. on Tuesday. We have Bible study. You're able to join Bible study in person in our sanctuary or on the phone line. We have a phone conference line that is a free phone conference if you're connecting from your cell phone. That number is 712-432-0360. The passcode is 348434. 712-432-0360, and the passcode is 348434.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're listening to Adoma and Company on the CV Media Network, 1430 AM WGFS.
I'm Alexius Marcano.
I'm Josh Neemsow.
So, Alexis, what can you share with our listeners today about the importance of the students here on the campus getting out to vote?
Well, really, students coming out to vote is incredibly important. Like, generally, youths have been getting more and more of a voice nationally, and now it's time to bring that to Georgia. We need to vote for a governor that will represent us and a senator who's in with today's ideas.
Well, I think it's so important to go out and vote as in our demographic, because too often we're forgotten about, and it's really important in Georgia right now because we have a chance to make history, influence this election, and get the first female senator elected in Georgia. And I think it's an unbelievable opportunity, and I can't wait for us to do this.
It has been a wonderful journey, and the time is nigh, and just everyone needs to get out and vote. And because it's just so important to exercise this right that so many of our ancestors struggled for us to be able to participate in our democracy. And we're hitting the road. We'll be all over the state, headed to Southwest Georgia on tomorrow morning. And I look forward to seeing you out there on the campaign trail as we head to the finish.
We're definitely going to be following you closely, Ms. Shipp, and thank you so much for this opportunity today.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
We have a very important race in Rockdale County for Commissioner Post 2 seat, and we're going to be speaking with Dr. Doreen Williams, who is the Democratic candidate for Post 2 Commissioner seat in Rockdale County. Thank you so much for taking time out of that very, very, very busy schedule to share with our listeners today just a little bit about, who you are and why you're running for this office and, anything else that you'd like for them to know about you.
I can. I decided to run for a couple of different reasons. The ethics ordinance that was passed 6 years ago has never been implemented. That's a concern to me, and I think that's probably a concern to many people in the county also. I think we need a place, a committee, a commission for the citizens to come and bring their concerns and their questions. The other reason that I'm running is because Rockdale County has no overall strategic plan. And it's difficult to function effectively if you're just making decisions in isolation. I feel like you've got to have a plan to know where you're headed so that the decisions you make today are still viable decisions 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. As a retired educator, you know, when you're a teacher in a classroom, you don't do anything without a plan because you want to know ahead of time where you want to take your students. Well, it's the same thing with the county when you're running a multi-million-dollar budget and you've got a multitude of different departments. There needs to be a plan. So those are a couple of the reasons that I decided to run.
Okay, now how will you reach across, Rockdale County? There are all types of people, nationalities, cultures, and of course, political parties. And, if you are elected, one of the things you have to do is work with all of those different parties in the county. So can you share with the listeners today a little bit about how you plan to reach across those differences, those party lines to help solve problems?
Here's the interesting thing. When you're running a county, unlike a state legislature or Congress, you're really looking at local issues that affect your local citizens. it's not really a matter of political party. It's a matter of what is best for the citizens of the county. And so when you're talking about crossing political lines, I have a number of folks who have supported me in this campaign who are of other political parties, the other political parties. I think it's important also, especially when you're doing a strategic plan, you want to hear the voices of all the pieces of the community. And so you have everybody at the table so that everybody has some input. Part of my strength from my professional background is being able to build consensus. When you're working in a classroom, you do that daily, on a daily basis. And it's a skill that is developed over time and practice of getting people to listen to each other, to identify the key points of common ground, and then make a decision that looks good to everybody. So, that I think that's the key thing in working with a whole variety of diverse groups. I would love to invite everyone to go to my website, which is www.drdoreenwilliams.com. For information about my campaign and helping on my campaign, they can call me directly at 678-232-1407.
Well, I want to thank you so much. So to our listeners out there, you just heard it from Dr. Doreen Williams, candidate for Commissioner Post 2, Rockdale County, an advocate for finding common ground and common sense, and someone who would bring a calm voice to the Board of Commissioners. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams, for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to vote.
You're listening to Adoma and Company on the CV Media Network.
Jim Wagner, and my title is President of Emory University. To vote is a privilege. I also almost wish it were a requirement from time, but to vote is a privilege, and not every nation in the world and every person has that privilege. And when we have it and don't exercise it, shame on us.
You're listening to Adoma and Company radio program, and we're fortunate to be interviewing our current commissioner in Rockdale County for Post 2, and her name is Janice Van Ness, and Janice is going to share some information with you today about why she's running for re-election and what her plans are for Rockdale County. So, Commissioner Van Ness, can you share with the listeners a little bit about why you're running for Commissioner Post 2 position?
Yes, I'd be glad to. When I came into the job 8 years ago, I had federal legislative experience working in D.C. for 2 different U.S. senators, and it was great to get that inside workings of the government. But when I wanted to come home and really be more active in my community, it was a great opportunity to be involved and see legislation that affects people's daily lives. And so I decided to run 8 years ago. One of the other main motivators was that I had 2 young children, and I really wanted a better park system for my children. And so that's kind of how I got engaged. And I was a big supporter of the Maxdale Park, which has now been named the Norman Wheeler Park, located on Parker Road in Conyers. And so that was how I got initially started. And 8 years later, I, of course, love Rockdale County because I'm a native of the community and 5th-generation resident. And I just really have a lot invested through family and my business and everything. I just want to be on the inside versus the outside looking in and try and make a difference.
How do you plan to reach across those party lines and all those cultural and national differences to be able to solve problems?
Well, I think my experience in D.C. and living other places really helped solidify my understanding and appreciation for other people that may have different backgrounds than I do. And I really feel like I've been blessed in this community. And as I shared the other day with a friend, if I just had a Go camera on that I could strap on and let people see what I see in the community, they would understand my love and passion for this community and the people in it. You know, I've certainly attended Democratic Party meetings before. I serve all the residents. I don't ask which party they are in when I communicate with them because it really doesn't matter at the local level. And a lot of the federal issues that you see the most difference in, like abortion and, pro-life issues, federal funding issues, grants, those kind of things, and topics that we debate on the federal level and state level just really aren't applicable at the local level. So we're able to really worry about the service to the people, the public safety for our citizens and our businesses. And, what I do impacts their daily life through the tax system, the roads, infrastructure, and, of course, economic development and bringing more jobs to Rockdale County. So we definitely, in our role as commissioners, I think we have the most impact on someone's daily life. And so for that reason, I have a lot of contact one-on-one with citizens in the community.
I've got one last question for you, Commissioner Van Ness. What significant changes would you bring to this position if you were reelected?
Well, I can't really say that it would be significant changes, but I would certainly continue to focus on my efforts to make us financially accountable in Rockdale County and be very lean and efficient with the tax dollars entrusted to us. I know that the chairman has just presented a budget that is $9.5 million over our revenues, meaning that our expenses are $9.5 million more than what we're going to be taking in for next year. That's what he's presented to the board, and now it's the job of the other two commissioners to whittle it down and try and figure out how we're going to afford to operate and provide a level of services that meets the needs of our citizens. And that's probably some of my greatest strength is the financial and business aspect of things. So I would definitely say that is one of the biggest reasons that I think voters need to be motivated to go to the polls, because in this economy, a lot of our residents can't bear any more taxes on, that would be due to them, that would be due to the county because of that overspending. The best way to reach me is by cell phone, which has always been accessible to the citizens, and that's 770-356-7301, or they can visit my website, which is JaniceVanNess.com, and that's JaniceVanNess.com. And my email is Janice@JaniceVanNess.com.
Well, Commissioner Van Ness, I'd like to thank you so much for taking time out of that busy schedule with just a few days left before the big day on November 4th to share with my listeners a little bit more about who you are and why they should elect you. And we hope that you will come on the show again. But today we'd like to thank you, and we want to wish you good luck in your upcoming election.
Well, Diane, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and I'd like to also encourage all of our Rockdale County residents to get out and experience our park system. It is beautiful, and we've just added additional walking trails and biking trails. So I'm there frequently, and I hope to meet some new people out on the trails that have listened to this show today. Thank you very much.